Four NASA astronauts are gearing up for an historic mission to return humans to deep space for the first time in more than 50 years. The crew touched down at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida Friday for final preparations ahead of next week's planned Artemis II launch. If all goes according to plan, they'll lift off on April 1st for a 10-day trip that will see them loop around the moon. During a news conference, Artemis Commander Reed Weissman talked about the expectations for their mission.
This is the first time we're loading the crew on with fuel on the pad, so we're ready. The rocket is ready. We are ready. NASA is ready. This vehicle is definitely ready to go. We went through the flight readiness review. We are ready to launch, but we're also humans trying to load millions of pounds of propellant onto a giant machine and send it to the moon.
This is such an incredible story. Let's bring in CBS News space consultant Bill Harwood, who joins us from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Bill, always good to have you on and get your expertise in this. You're an encyclopedia of knowledge in this topic. What is the crew doing at this moment to prepare for liftoff on April 1st?
Well, you know, believe it or not, 3 years after being selected to join this crew for this flight to the moon and doing simulations, training around the clock almost, believe it or not, they're actually relaxing. They're going to spend some time with their families. They'll review their flight plans, of course. But generally, it's a pretty light schedule leading up to launch. And I think they're going to take advantage of that time and relax. And again, spend time with the family before they take off for the moon, as hard as it is to imagine that in everyday life.
You know, one of the things that I found so interesting about that press conference today was the question about, will they get annoyed with each other? They're going to have a lot of space between them and planet Earth, but not a lot of space from each other. But the larger goal here for NASA of establishing a long-term presence on the moon, how does this mission fit into that, Bill?
Well, it's really sort of a trailblazing mission. I mean, first of all, we all talk about it being a moon flight, but it's really a test flight. The SLS rocket that they're flying on and the Orion crew capsule have never flown with a crew before. This is the second flight for each of those vehicles, the first with a crew. So the very first thing they're going to do when they get to space is spend a full day, 25 hours, in orbit around Earth, just checking out the Orion spacecraft, making sure they understand all the systems and that they're all working properly before they commit to flying to the moon. So test flight of Orion, number one. Number two, they want to test these systems in deep space, kind of blazing a trail for these flights that are going to follow, which will give the flight control team a lot of hands-on experience with flying a deep space mission. I mean, NASA hadn't done this in more than 50 years. So it really is a first step toward putting people back on the surface of the moon in just 2 years.
You know, there's a lot of hype around this mission. Of course, a lot of hype comes with oftentimes a lot of criticism here. Artemis II is behind schedule and way over budget. Are these goals and timelines realistic, and does this shift the narrative for this entire mission away from the criticism it's received?
I don't think it shifts the narrative for this mission, but there are some big question marks out there for the plan that the NASA administrator, Jared Isaacman, outlined just earlier in the week. You know, he's talking about building moon bases, a really ambitious plan. It says spending $20 billion over the next 7 years to make that happen. You know, he certainly believes they can do it. And I think technically there's no question NASA can do this. The real question is, will there be long-term political support, and will the money flow from Congress to make that happen? That's an open question, but there's no question NASA can do it if they're given the wherewithal.
Yeah, and the budget. Bill Harwood, we appreciate your time. Thank you, as always. And a programming note, we will have special coverage of next week's Artemis II launch on Wednesday. That will be right here on CBS News 24/7.